Hey guys, welcome back to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we are back with a Jhin supplementary guide, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Jhin's quote-unquote mathematically correct max damage build. Now in theory this is not the max damage build. The max damage build is actually building Shield Bow, which is not here. It's actually building Shield Bow instead of Collector. So this, technically speaking, is the build that will give you the most AD. Why? Because Shield Bow and Collector have the same amount of AD, but Shield Bow has 15% attack speed, which is going to get converted into attack damage because of Jhin's passive. However, personally, I prefer going for Collector because Shield Bow, firstly, it's gotten nerfed, and secondly, Collector gives you that early game armor penetration, which I like early on in the game, compared to what Shield Bow gives you, which is that shield. So it's kind of like early game damage versus survivability. Both are kind of good. It's kind of dependent on your own preference and your playstyle. But yeah, so basically, how the build goes is, firstly you go for Collector, of course, as I mentioned, early game damage, as well as the nice satisfying passive. Then i.e. of course more AD, more crit, and increased crit damage. Then LDR of course gives you armor penetration as well as the crit once again. And then finally you go for Bloodthirster, which gives you AD, crit, as well as of course the physical vamp, as well as the Bloodthorn shield. Now you can technically go for rapid fire cannon here, but rapid fire cannon doesn't give you very much AD and doesn't it does convert the attack speed to AD, but it gives you really little AD. So this one is for the range and this is for the sustain. I like Bloodthirster for the sustain personally. Also makes Jhin hit very, very hard. This puts you to 100% crit. Now, for the boots, you always go for Boots of Fear for the movement speed. And of course for the boot enchant, you generally go for QSS or Stasis majority of the time. And the last item, this is where the math comes in. So this is Steraks Gauge. It gives you 400 max HP, which of course helps with your survivability, but also it gives you 50% bonus AD as bonus attack damage. So now Jhin's calculation of how you get to his AD is pretty complicated. I'm not going to bore you with the math, and to be honest I couldn't really explain it very well either, but basically Jhin gets more AD based off of his crit, which is the main change that they've been trying to give him in patch 4.2 and 4.2a. So he scales his AD scales off of his crit, off of his attack speed, because attack speed is converted into crit, and that's basically how Jhin gets his AD. However, using Steraks Gauge and the 50% base AD as bonus AD conversion, this one item gives you, I believe, around 130 or 140 AD from one item, which is completely insane when you think about the fact that, like, for example, IE gives you 55 and Bloodthirster gives you 55 AD. So that's like about roughly double of, like, more than double of what like a single item can give you. So this is why, because of the way Jhin's math works out in the calculation of his AD, you can get the Steraks Gauge as the last item to give you a huge amount of AD, and this overall will end up basically giving you like almost 800 AD if I'm not mistaken, something like that. So you do insane damage when you reach full build. However, the reason why I put this as a supplementary guide and not an updated complete guide is I don't think this is Jhin's best build, and the reason for that is to reach this full build, to get Steraks Gauge, to make this build OP, you either have to have a game that lasts very, very long, like 25 minutes plus, those kind of games are very, very rare. They're like 1 in 50 kind of games, or you have to get very, very, very fed, to reach maximum build. Like you have to get very, very fed, like start off the game 8-0 or something like that, or it's a combination of both. You get decently fed and the game lasts decently long, which is what you will see in the gameplay later on. But basically, I think this build is the best build for Jhin if you can reach full build. But the issue is that it's incredibly inconsistent because it's really, really unlikely you reach full build. Like, I think you'll only reach full build 1 in every, like I don't know, 10-20 matches or so. And that's kind of the issue I have with this build. But anyways, for the runes, of course, Fleet Footwork for the mobility as well as the slight bit of sustain. I like going for Hunter Vampirism for the additional healing. Of course, you can also go for like Brutal for like just additional attack damage, or Giant Slayer if against a very tanky team. Technically, weakness is also an option because he does slow on his ult as well as his E and also his W, so he does make decent good use of weakness. Then Bone Plating for the anti-burst, or Perseverance if you're into a team with a lot of CC. And for the last rune, I like taking Transcendence because you get your cooldowns back faster. Even though Jhin does a lot of damage on his autos, his like Q does decent damage, his W can root, and it's pretty decent as well, so you know, it's a decent rune. Flash as well as Ghost here. Of course, you can go for Exhaust if you need it or in certain cases, but I think Ghost is a better as a default, and Ghost is kind of coming into the meta of ADCs, which is something that I love. So now, with all that out the way, let's jump into talking about our gameplay. Okay, so here, of course, is the Jhin gameplay. Now, of course, as I mentioned, to even reach full build, which we did manage to do this game, of course, which is why this video even exists, I think there's no real point of showing a video of Jhin if you don't reach the Steraks gauge, because that's where the math and why Jhin is quote-unquote really OP right now is really in the discussion. Now, personally, I do think that this Jhin build is completely OP, is completely busted, and if you reach like full items, I think he becomes one of the strongest ADCs in the game, and he now scales insanely well because of Sterak's gauge and how his crit conversion works. It's, of course, they nerfed it from 5% to 4%, but it's still pretty insane. But of course, as I mentioned, the main issue is how you are very, very unlikely to reach max level full build in most games. It happens pretty rarely. So here I get hooked in by Blitzcrank, but you know, I have way more damage than Jinx in the early game. So this was kind of a troll. I flash forward, get the execution onto the Jinx, and use the movement speed to run away. I root the Blitzcrank. Leona stuns him, and we got 4th shot again. Leona tanks the tower. We 4th shot the Blitzcrank and score ourselves a double kill. And Leona makes it out with the help of her flash as well. And here, Gwen is in on the chase. We manage to root her. Stun comes in from Leona. Gwen decides to chase under tower to get the Leona. And 1 minute into the game, I land with 3 kills. Got hooked by the Blitzcrank. I won't lie to you, that was not intentional. But the moment I got hooked by him, I realized that you know, a Leona Jhin definitely wins against the Jinx Blitzcrank, you know, at you know, like level 1 or level 2. And we proceed on to destroy the Jinx. Play very well mechanically to destroy the Blitzcrank as well. And we managed to get the Gwen because of her green. Honestly, the Gwen shouldn't really have gone under tower for the Leona. She probably should have just backed off when she got CC'd and just given up the kill. But, you know, she got greedy and basically she traded a Leona for herself. And also gave me blue buff as well as a kill. I have to say, I didn't expect Gwen to be there in the first place because I thought I would expect that most junglers start on red buff, but I guess kind of makes sense that Gwen starts on blue because she's a mage. But since she doesn't have red buff, she doesn't have the red buff slow, doesn't have the red buff dot. So because of that, you know, we do manage to get a 3rd kill. So obviously off of that, we get the Dirk as well as the glove. Here, Leona does manage to engage. I pop the Ghost and try to run down the Jinx. Here I managed to get off a lot of damage onto the Jinx, but she does manage to pick up the fruit, so definitely not a kill there. We have to be cautious not to get hooked into the tower, because that, you know, would be a disaster and would pretty much definitely die. As I mentioned in my Jhin basic guide, you do want to use your traps to prevent yourself from getting ganked. Like those traps at those 2 locations at the 2 corners are the general locations junglers like to come from. And using those traps, it doesn't stop them from ganking you, but it shows them when they step on it, and it also slows them down, which makes it harder to, of course, catch you. Now, since we have the other bush warded, I did put one more over there. Here I root Blitzcrank again Jinx with some really nice traps to cut off my escape. Here I'm going to pop the ulti. And here, we managed to actually get both of them. Jinx tried to help Blitzcrank block the shots, but the issue is that Jinx herself is really squishy, so with the help of Leona as well as a couple of my ulti shots, I managed to actually kill Leona manages to kill the Jinx, which allows me to shoot through her onto the Blitzcrank. So basically, we end up getting both of them again. So now I'm 4-0-1 with the Collector, and I also bought myself some boots. In my opinion, I think Jhin is quite important to get boots a little bit earlier on because of how Jhin relies very heavily on movement speed. He doesn't really have any mobility, so he loves the fleet footwork, he loves the boots, he loves the ghost, loves the flash, you know, that kind of thing. He's all about all those extra movement speed, mobility kind of, you know, add-ons. So anyways, here you can see Blitzcrank has popped my trap, so I know he's there, so I'm going to be cautious here. Q instantly clears the wave, 4th shot onto the wave to clear it. And here you can see that Gwen is kind of coming down here, but we don't really want to mess with them. It's just 2 of us versus the 3 of them. Akali is sort of in the area, but she's not incredibly close. Here I was expecting Blitzcrank to hook somebody and initiate the fight, but he ends up not doing that. Probably because of from the PTSD of all those hooks in the lane, where pretty much he just ends up feeding us kills. Anyways, here I'm just trying to clear out the wave, which I do manage to do before the dragon is up. And here Gwen has already popped out. Now this is crucial information because we know that in the ensuing dragon fight she's not gonna have her ult. Our jungler, the Evelyn, is also here, ready to contest the Drake most likely. Me and Jinx are now just in lane, just clearing minions. Managed to bounce one of my Qs onto her for a little bit of poke. Missed the blind W though. Unfortunately, Evelyn does end up dying to the Gwen, and Gwen does end up making it out. Not just that, but Leona dies as well. Akali was already dead, and suddenly everybody is just dead when the objectives are up. So here, obviously we cannot really contest objectives, so I'm just going to back and pick up a BF sword, which of course is going to build into IE, and it's also a huge component to get. So now here you can see the enemy team is actually doing the dragon. Now Evelyn is obviously not trying to contest. Now obviously, you know, it's unlikely that I'm going to get it, but I'm still going to put pressure onto the Gwen by popping the ulti. Sometimes they happen to not have smite, or they miss smite. So sometimes you do end up stealing a free dragon. Happened many times when I'm playing Jhin, so I'm just going to try. Anyway, Jhin ult is not likely to be very useful most of the time anyways. For Jhin ult to be useful is either like when you're running into a team fight, or like right after the team fight people are running away, but in general Jhin ult is not the most useful ult, so I don't mind just popping it to try to attempt to steal. Anyways, a fight at the Herald ends up happening. We do end up picking up the Herald. Here a huge wave is crashing into Jinx's tower. She does root me, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to take a couple of tower plates, as you can see here, and I'm obviously going to be very happy with all that additional gold I'm having. You can see in terms of gold, I'm almost at 6k gold. No one is really even close. Closest probably Irelia, who's at 5k, 5k plus, I guess you could say. So here we're doing pretty well. Although that's the case, we are very unlikely to kill Jinx under tower. Maybe with that ult that we used, we maybe could have tried, but it requires some really good aiming from me. Here, I was trying to get a catch onto the Jinx, but instead Blitzcrank tries to come in here. I don't actually know if I really needed to flash there. I don't think the hook was hitting anyways, but even if it did, you know, if it did, I did think I would probably die, because Blitzcrank hook into knockup into traps. I cannot move anywhere, so I decided not to take the risk, and I decided to just ghost and flash anyways. So don't have any summoners left. However, they try a very greedy back. Blitzcrank actually manages to make it back because no damage actually hits him, and Jinx is now kind of left alone under the tower, which is not really, you know, the worst scenario for us either. Blitzcrank is going to come back to lane, but in the meanwhile we can actually just try to take this tower. Here we can see Gwen is in the river, and she's probably making her way towards us, but I decide to commit for the tower, and we do pick up the tower. Here Gwen does end up coming in. I get hit by the side of her ult, and I do get slowed down. Irelia actually misses her ult, but Gwen lands the final charge of the ult, which destroys half of my HP bar, as well as obviously kills me. So unfortunately, you know, we end up trading my life for a tower. It's probably not worth because of how fed I am at the moment, but we also did get all the tower plates and the tower itself, so it's kind of debatable, but I personally don't think it was the best decision. Either way, I managed to actually complete my IE off of that back, so on double crit items now, and of course still doing really well at 7k gold. Irelia is kind of catching up. Gwen is really close as well, so obviously the Jinx is not too huge of a problem, and so is the Blitzcrank. We kind of managed to handle them relatively well in the early game, although Blitzcrank is now kind of roaming and going on a killing spree, so not doing too hot in that respect as well. And you can see that my team isn't doing very well. Evelyn and as well as Akali is not doing too hot. Garen is doing kind of alright, but no one is really feeding to the point that they're, you know, 0 and 5 kind of situation or anything like that. Obviously our team is kind of slightly behind, but overall it's nothing that, you know, we can't handle, at least so far. And yeah, so we're just gonna keep walking around, keep picking up farm, and just try to get, you know, of course, to our item breakpoints. So here we farm up the Raptors, but there really isn't very much things to do. Rift Herald does get dropped down mid, so it looks like a fight is going to break out in mid. Here I'm trying to stay safe. Irelia tries to ult me but doesn't really hit. Jinx ult actually connects onto me, but Garen lives on like 1 HP. And once again, nothing much is really happening. The dragon is spawning in 40 seconds, so that's going to be the next kind of thing that happens in the match. But for now, for the next like 30 seconds or so, nothing too much is really happening. Alright, so here, I have no idea why the Blitzcrank didn't just knock me up the moment I walked into the bush. I end up falling into the enemy's trap. But I again had popped my flash and ghost and I am fine. I think if Blitzcrank knocked me up into hook straight away, I think I would have gone instantly bursted there and probably would have just died. But I'm not sure why he hesitated on the knockup and allowed me to basically run away. So anyways, I managed to bag. I get the boots of swiftness, and of course now I don't have both of my sums for dragons. So overall, even though they didn't get a kill on me, it's still a pretty huge win because they didn't really use anything. But Set does end up dying, and Garen is simply off on the split push on the opposite lane of where the dragon is. He has like Serpent's Fang, I guess, to counter the Set, which is really weird as a build still. Managed to dodge most of Gwen's ulti, but Jinx does get the reset and she's on the chase for me and Leona. Here, Evelyn is still kind of in the area. Irelia has gone up to deal with the Garen situation. So here I'm in actually a 3v3 situation here. So here I put down the I put down a control ward as well as the trap to try to see. Again, I'm using the ulti to try to snipe people down. Evelyn manages to secure the dragon. I managed to collect the Blitzcrank, and off of the kill on the Blitzcrank, Gwen actually steps onto the traps and steps onto my Lotus trap and triggers the collector, which actually causes me to kill the Gwen as well, even though I'm not even on the same screen as her and I don't have my ulti out, which is pretty funny. I was like so confused about how I got that kill, and then I realized that it must have been the Jhin trap into the collector, which is pretty funny. But anyways, here using Jin's like strong wave clear, we're able to basically one-shot the huge wave, and we're gonna just farm the Krugs like that. And obviously the next wave has come, so after we're done with this, we can obviously just move on to going for the wave like so. And yeah, the bouncing grenade, we can pick up the whole wave. And then we're just going to back and pick up more items. So we complete the stasis, and we're of course building our LDR. The armor penetration, really useful of course. Set is going to be pretty tanky. Blitzcrank already has a couple of tank items, like of course his Randuin's Omen. So this is going to come in really handy. Here Gwen tries to chase us down. I do decent damage onto the Gwen actually, but I have to back off because Blitzcrank is in the area and I don't really want to get hooked into the enemy team and just die straight up. But here we're still doing really well. We're actually at 10k gold, 10.5k gold, and once again Irelia and Gwen are pretty much up there with me. They're also almost at 10k gold, so those are the two main targets I really want to focus. The rest of the people aren't really problems. Of course, Jinx can be a problem if she gets multiple resets, but for now, it's really Irelia and Gwen who are the issue for me. It's also kind of an issue because they can just dive right on top of me and you know, pretty much just kill me. So here, Gwen, you know, chases a little bit too deep. We're going for the Gwen, of course. Here we try to get some damage onto Irelia, which we do manage to do. So one part of the equation of the problem has been eliminated. Gwen is gone. Now it's only Irelia left. Here I try to help to root the Set, but I kind of miss. Doesn't matter. Akali picks up the kill on Set anyways. And Jinx and Blitzcrank, you can see that they are actually in the top lane. We don't know where's Irelia, and she's definitely capable of killing us by herself. So that's why I'm kind of being cautious and not just following the wave and going all the way up. Here a fight ensues between Blitzcrank and Jinx, trying to get a pick onto Evelyn, which they do manage to do. However, me and Akali are off on the chase. Well, not quite, but we're basically off to get some minions in the end. But here Irelia is split pushing the other lane. Garen and Leona are going to handle the situation. In the meantime, we have enough for the LDR, so we're going to pick up the LDR. Going to be really useful, of course, against the Blitzcrank in particular now, who now has 2 armor items. Also has completed his Frozen Gauntlet. Or rather, it's Iceborne Gauntlet. It's Iceborne Gauntlet and Frozen Heart. So anyways, here my Evelyn is dead, so I'm just going to pick up the red buff for myself. Baron is now currently alive, And the next dragon is spawning in under a minute, so a lot of objectives coming up really soon. It's important to stay safe and not die. Of course, it's normally important to stay safe and not die anyways, but especially before objectives. Now here, unfortunately, our our Leona falls into the trap and gets hooked in by Blitzcrank. Ends up becoming a free pick for the enemy team because me and Akali cannot really save her without basically inting and putting our own lives in danger. So unfortunately, Leona does end up going down there. And here, enemy team decides to try to push in. Here I managed to get my 4-shot onto Irelia for a huge 1k crit, but doesn't seem to be doing too much to her health bar actually. So here the dragon is spawning in 30 seconds. Enemy jungle at least kind of setting up for it. And here we have a set dealing with the top lane, and we have 3 people trying to push down the mid lane. Irelia manages to dive the tower and kill the Akali, which is not not really what we want to see. But once again, we just want to play safe and see what we can do. We don't want to put ourselves in unnecessary risk, especially because we are really, really fed. We're still more fed than the Gwen, actually, despite Gwen just picking up a couple of kills. But anyways, here Dragon is spawning, but Evelyn is on the opposite side of the map anyway. So once again, looks like Dragon is a very unlikely. It looks like it's a very unlikely thing to happen. As you can see, Gwen actually ulting the dragon, so I realized that there's pretty much no points. I wasn't even going to try to steal it or anything like that, so I'm just going to let them take it. It's only Ocean Dragon, it's not too big of a deal, and they have double dragon, not triple dragon, because we did secure the mountain dragon, so overall I think it's not worth putting myself at too much risk to contest that dragon. We're able to pick up double components of the Bloodthirster off of that back. And yeah, so here we're kind of getting up there in terms of build. Honestly, Jhin is not too complicated to explain. You pretty much just want to stay safe and just DPS with your auto attacks, when it's safe to do so. You can follow up on CC or even try to get a pick using your W, and just toss at your Q basically in team fights. Traps are a lot more important in the laning phase than like in the later stages of the game. Of course, they're still useful like that to like give you vision of stuff, but they're not quite useful in the later stages. And ult is very conditional. You have to be far away and such. Here, two-man Leona ulti comes in. Here, managed to CC the Irelia, reload, managed to kill the Irelia with the Collector, and move on to the Jhin. Here I'm chasing down the Jinx. Unfortunately, I get hit by the Zap, and Jinx just straight up runs out of the ulti zone. Here I stasis to try to buy time for Garen to come and save me. He silences the Gwen, but it's not enough to save me, and Gwen does manage to kill me. Garen doesn't actually have ultimate, so because of that, Jinx is able to live, and Gwen and Jinx end up cleaning up the fight for the team. So unfortunately, didn't quite work out for me there. I did manage to actually get my Bloodthirster now, so I do have the 100% crit with the 4 crit items. So now we just need that Steraks gauge to complete the quote-unquote OP build. But of course, we do have pretty long death timer, so Gwen and Jinx are able to clear out the minions and manage to take down the inhibitor tower. But of course, because of the Nexus shield, they are of course not actually able to end the game. So at least we do have that going for us. But Elder Dragon is spawning in half a minute, and Baron is up. So here is obviously where the game deciding fights always happen. Generally, both teams are actually pretty close. There is 5k gold separating us, and of course Gwen and Irelia are pretty fair. It's honestly mostly Gwen now. Like, Irelia is now like 3k gold behind me, but Gwen is now like 2k gold ahead of me. So it's now mostly Gwen that's the issue. And of course Gwen does have that Hallowed Mist, which prevents me from attacking her when it triggers, which is kind of annoying. So here Gwen does end up using that. She uses her ult as well. Leona manages to stun her, and you see she gets chain CC there, and she just dies. Why? Because she already used the Hallowed Mist and she's just gone. Irelia, the second most valuable target, actually jumps straight on in. Once again, I just end up collecting her, and she just basically ends up dying. Enemy team basically kind of a huge throw onto the game actually. Here with the Baron, Set's trying to actually push in. However, he's not actually able to do so, and he ends up dying. Here I'm now on the chase for the Blitzcrank, and here I just pop the ulti, get the snipe off onto the Blitzcrank with the help of the Collector as well. And unfortunately though, we do end up losing all of our inhibitors. So even though we managed to kill basically the whole enemy team, we end up with not having inhibitors, which is really, really bad. Thankfully, Baron buff is removed on everybody except for the Jinx, and by removed I mean that they won't get the empowered minions. Of course, Baron buff cannot actually be removed upon death anymore. So here, obviously the most obvious thing to do here is to just pick up Elder Dragon before the enemy can contest. Jinx is of course here checking the situation, but Gwen is only just respawned. She's gonna take some time to run here. Well, she is kind of in the area already. We do manage to secure the Elder Dragon, and here my team wants to fight because we have Elder, which kind of does make sense, but Garen just ends up getting destroyed instantly. I end up getting destroyed by Jinx, and I'm running. The Evelynn does actually manage to kill both Gwen as well as Jinx, which is huge because obviously Jinx is kind of scaling. She's at 4 items now, so she even though she wasn't doing too hot previously, she's gonna be doing pretty alright now. She's of course scaling into the game. Gwen is of course the most fed member, so she did manage to pick up 2 key kills onto the enemy team. However, of course, being the problem being that we don't have any inhibitors, we of course are gonna have to just stay here and clear our minions. Now we have completed the Steraks gauge already, so we finally reached that dream build of having the Steraks gauge, and we have super minions just pouring in from everywhere, and we're just trying to clear the waves so that the minions can end the game. Now thankfully Baron is not up, and of course we still have Elder Dragon active. If Baron was up, I'm fairly confident even with Elder. I think the enemy team could have just forced in with the Baron and just ended the game because we wouldn't be able to clear the Baron. But thankfully, number 1 they died, and number 2 they don't have Baron, so we're still kind of fine. Here we managed to pick up the red, but we can see that 2,422k damage onto the red buff. Here we actually nearly kill the Gwen. We managed to kill the Blitzcrank instead. We managed to stasis to prevent ourselves from dying from Irelia. I popped the ulti to try to slow down the set, which I did hit him with 2 shots, but my team is not even trying to catch up to him. Here Gwen once again pops up, is trying to run down the Leona, I believe, but decides to give up the chase after she realizes the whole team is there. Now here, there ends up being a fight between Sett, Gwen, as well as my team. I've gone here to clear the wave. Basically, my team manages to finish off the fight, and we do manage to actually pick up both kills. Now this is prime time to pick up enemy inhibitor. We can see that Garen is actually split pushing while the Baron is up, so this allows us to pick up the Baron and allows Garen to hopefully pick up the inhibitor. Now here of course there's no contest from the enemy team because they're all dead. We're just going to quickly blast down this Baron using our damage. Of course Baron is pretty tanky, doesn't take too much damage. Now we do manage to pick up the Baron. I'm going to recall using the Baron and part recalls. Of course I've been full build for some time now. The Steraks shield is down, but the Steraks, just for the base stats and everything is still pretty amazing. And here again we're just clearing super minions. The mid wave is going to actually spawn soon, so we should be able to not be able to deal with super minions in the mid lane soon. And here we're just trying to use our Baron buff, or we should be trying to use our Baron buff to push lane. So here we should have a couple of people pushing mid. Of course, because we don't really have the mid towers yet. Garen is split pushing at the top lane, which of course makes sense because bot lane already doesn't have an inhibitor. Now here, I end up getting caught by Blitzcrank at long last, and I basically just end up dying. Unfortunately, this could have been a game-losing play, but thankfully the enemy team doesn't actually manage to end the game off of this. But yeah, sometimes a catch like that by a Blitzcrank, in late game, like 20 plus minutes, that can be a game-winning play for the Blitzcrank team, and a game-losing play for the other team. So I nearly just lost the game from my team there, because eliminating me from the picture is pretty huge. Right, so obviously now our Baron is kind of running out. The next objective that's spawning is going to be the Elder Dragon. And it's going to be another Elder Dragon fight basically. Blitzcrank tries to go in on Evelynn and just basically tries to stop him, but doesn't really work. Gwen tries to TP in and tries to run down my team, but once again doesn't really work. Ends up basically trolling, and Evelynn ends up picking up a double kill onto the both of them, and I managed to collect the Irelia. So 3 kills completed from my team. we basically end up just going for the Elder Dragon. Honestly, I think we could have also tried to just go for an end here, like just end through mid. Do have a mid wave, but the safer way is to remove the Elder Dragon from the map and then run down mid and then end the game. Death timers are still really long. Of course, our 2 inhibitors are finally respawning. However, these huge super minion waves are kind of pouring in, especially on the top side. Here, Jinx tries to recall at a very unsafe position. We are going to interrupt her using our W. And you can see we just evaporate the tower. Here, Set and Jinx just disappear because we have Elder Dragon, also together with the Collector from me. And here, enemy team is like 3 seconds from spawning, but you can see like Jhin does like, he crits the base for 1k damage when the base is only like 4k health. So like, there's nothing enemy team can really do about it. Anyways, I'm gonna leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.